Okay, it's saying we are live, so let me go to the old channel, see if I can determine if that's correct. Couldn't tell you. I have no idea. And doesn't seem like anybody's here, which is interesting today. I did notice that when I posted it, I could not find it anywhere, which I thought was pretty strange. And that was kind of annoying for sure. So looks like I have already ads added to this. So there we go. All right. So it does look like we're on. All right, so we'll see if anybody joins us here. I put this up earlier. I'm not really sure if anybody's going to join us, but I think it's going to be an interesting live chat for the simple fact that, once again, we are going to be bringing up the issue of SIG and their strange ability to do the same things over and over again and not really get the message, I guess. Hello, Joshua. How are you, sir? So, when I put this out, I already had somebody tell me they don't really care about this, and and that's totally fine. You don't have to care about it, but at the same time, I think it's worth talking about since you have a major gun manufacturer who keeps coming out and saying that they've done nothing wrong, and they just released their big statement yesterday. So even though they said it ended today, which was like 5 days ago, it continues. So we'll let some people roll in here. Dexter, how are you, sir? Mike, how are you? And like I said, we're going to be talking a little bit about SIGs. I'm going to be doing what I did last stream, and that is to show you some media. I think it's important for people to not just take my word for what I've been reading and seeing, but also to share that with all of you. And I think in doing that in the process, it allows us to have I think, a more honest, objective discussion. There have been some concerns that SIG will start going after people talking about this, with cease and desist orders and all this other crap. But I don't think I'm big enough to really warrant that. And to be honest with you, I'm not really here to bash SIG. I'm really not. I'm just here to question some of the things that they're doing. So, Mr. Stipper 22, how are you? Peter K, how are you? Dexter, did anyone reach out to you for your state infringement? That would be a big fat no. I actually did call attorneys on retainer, and they said they could not help me. So that was awesome. Thanks, guys. But I think it also is about the fact that New York State does not allow any kind of gun insurance here. So that could possibly be it. But it didn't seem like they had any interest in at least directing me to somebody who would be willing to assist. And in my opinion, this seems to be a very normal thing in our state. I guess this is happening more and more commonly. And I read it somewhere. I wasn't able to find it again, but it looks like when they passed this year's new gun laws for New York State, one of the things they put in there was that and I read it, but I can't find it, which is weird, but it said something about having 15 pistols or more, and then they call you in to, I guess, see what's the deal and to determine if you are safely keeping them. The other companies I did not reach out to either. I figure, there isn't a lot of people out here who really work for New York State people, residents like myself. So I'm going to go in by myself. I'm going to talk to my friend, and we're going to kind of come up with a strategy on how to approach it. And unfortunately, you have to be a little bit curious and at the same time a little bit safe because this person does have the ability to revoke your license, which would be interesting if it happens. I don't know how. I haven't broken any laws or anything. So, we'll see how that plays out. All right. So again, we'll see how people come in. If hopefully more and more people will, come into the chat and leave some comments down. The other thing I do want to mention is if you have not seen any of my shorts or anything on Instagram, no, not my shorts that I wear, but my short videos, my son does and is a lacrosse player in college. He is going to be playing in the World Games in August for Team Puerto Rico, which is a national team. And they will be playing teams like, the United States, Canada, so on and so forth. So we are looking for fundraising and donations for the team because we are not funded. We are self-funded, unlike the other larger, supported teams. So it kind of sucks for us, but we are trying to raise money. I do have a link. I'm not asking for you guys to do much. Maybe donate $5 if you can. Anything. I mean, really, even $1. I don't care. Just make sure you don't click on all the added fees and stuff. Don't add that shit in. But if you guys wouldn't mind, I'd appreciate it. It goes to their room and board, uniforms, transportation. So it'll be in South Korea. It's pretty exciting. I will be paying for his flight, my flight, and my room and board, obviously. But we do need some help for these guys. So it's about 26 players. all college players, Division 1, Division 2, and just a good group of kids, man. So that's that. All right, so let's get it on with SIG. So a couple of things. I'm going to see if I can figure out how to do this crap again. I know I tried to do it last time. So before I switch over, what's up, Scott? How are you? G23, hello. I'm gonna pull up some things here so I can actually like show you guys. And let me pull this. Okay, all right. I think I'm ready. So we're gonna try to do this again. So we are going to share my screen. We are going to, I guess, let's see, share my screen again. We're going to do an entire screen, and then I'm going to allow and share system audio in case I want to do any of that good stuff. And here we go. All right, there we go. So I wanted to show you a couple of things today before we get started on this, and then I will go through questions and all that other great stuff. But the first thing we're going to talk a little bit about here is this one right here. This was the newest statement released by SIG. And you can see here, case dismissed. Police officer admits his 6-hour 320 pistol cannot discharge without a trigger pull. So it says 6 hours. Pleased to announce the United States District Court for the District of Puerto Rico has officially entered an order dismissing the lawsuit. It's Barrios versus 6 Hour. You can actually read all that stuff. Alleging the P320 service weapon of police officer Elvis Ramon Green Barrios, the plaintiff, discharged without the trigger being pulled. Mr. Barrios voluntarily dismissed his action against 6 Hour, admitting in court filed documents that his 320 pistol had no defects and does not discharge without a trigger pull. So that's quite interesting, right? And it's interesting for a couple of reasons, right? So first off, you have a gentleman who is saying that his gun went off and it shot him. And interestingly enough, he changed it. He changed his opinion. He said, "Oh, it was nothing." And it's kind of an interesting thing because it says here that he changes his mind, saying that it couldn't shoot without trigger pulls, and as a result, he lost the case. Now, if any of you have gone back and looked at some of the casework, you'd realize that in the first part of this court case, which I think has been going on for like 3 years, 3 or 4 years, the defendant, Sig Sauer, at one point tried to argue that the expert witness for the plaintiff shouldn't be able to testify. And eventually the Federal Circuit Court ruled against Sig, saying, well, if this person doesn't testify, then technically there's no case, and that's not going to happen. But then fast forward 4 years, this gentleman says, oh, by the way, it didn't go off accidentally or, for no reason. I guess for some reason, this was, his fault. And again, it doesn't show you that it's this individual's fault. It shows that, SIG won. So it says here, nearly 3 years of litigation and lawsuit, 6 Hour has vigorously defended the safety, quality, and manufacturing of the 320. The admission that the 320 is not defective was gained after 6 Hour presented detailed scientific evidence showing that the 320 cannot fire without a trigger pull and contains no manufacturing defects. This decision marks the 18th frivolous or unsupported P320 unintentional discharge lawsuit dismissed against 6 Hour. So as of now, it looks like SIG is really starting to, win. I mean, it's the 18th lawsuit, and as a result, this is the one they've been able to defend again. And ta-da, they won. Now, of course, we can argue whether or not this is legit, or did this individual get paid off? Is there like an NDA that was signed here? Who knows? We have no idea. The fact is that, they're saying the gun can't go off without the trigger being pulled. I mean, who knows, right? Like it's very difficult to get any of the real hard facts of this. They said they presented scientific evidence. Okay. So what scientific evidence? Like, what did they present? It doesn't really say anything. It's just showing you that. So obviously, I've picked a couple of things so you all can see this. And this first video, which is on YouTube, I mean, there's no surprise here, comes from an Atex Kate, I believe, or I don't know, Atex Kate, I don't know, whatever. So we'll watch this real quick, and you guys can see what happens here and make your own judgment calls. Ooh. All right. So again, we can debate what this is. Obviously, there is something that happens there that discharges an awful lot of smoke, and you can see by the reaction of the shooter here. So now, is a misfire? Is this a blowing up, which seems to be the next big thing here with 6 Hour, or is it an overcharged case? I mean, that's a lot of smoke coming out of there, so maybe it's overpressurized. Who knows? But that's one. Now, could we dispute that this is, human error versus gun error? We could. But what about this one? This one I thought was very interesting. And let's see what this one is. Know what that is. There it is. It says by At the Right Gun, so you can check these
Welcome
out.
to The Right Gun. Like, subscribe, and share. No, this is not clickbait. On the 8th round, you will see this 320 X5 Legion explode in my hand. Here are the facts. SIG and Freedom Munitions are looking into this incident. As of right now, we don't know if it was a hot load or a structural failure in the frame. This just happened a few days ago, but as I get more answers, I will post an updated long format video.
Wow. So, let me see if I don't know if I can fast forward again, and I don't know what
Welcome
the
to The
next
Right
video
Gun.
is.
Like,
So
subscribe, and
let's watch
share.
this
No,
one
this
more
is not
time.
clickbait. On the 8th round, you will see this 320 X5 Legion explode in my hand. Here are the facts. SIG and Freedom Munitions are looking into this incident. As of right now, we don't know if it was a hot load or a structural failure in the frame. This just happened a few days ago, but as I get more answers, I will post an updated long format video.
All right, so that is another gentleman shooting their SIG. It's that's kind of oof. That's kind of an oofy one, right? So 8 rounds in, the gun literally detaches, it blows up in his hand. And again, this isn't necessarily about the gun going off by itself, but is this the next wave of things that SIG is going to have to defend itself again? Because I don't know. I mean, I would say that that was pretty convincing evidence that I just showed everybody. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But I don't know. I mean, to me, it seems pretty reasonable to think something might be off here. This I thought was an interesting one too. Gentleman here is, we'll go back to the beginning, but it looks like he is testing his SIG. See if it will go off. And then he just keeps hitting the back of it, right? Because we all know that's a problem. But then it actually discharges without him pulling the trigger. So again, that's kind of I'd say nerve-wracking to say the least, because here you have a gun that by all means is not, discharging when it's getting tapped on the back of it. But then at the same time, when you're just holding it in a stable position with no finger on the trigger, the gun shoots. So is that something that was created by human error? Yeah. I mean, SIG could defend it by saying, well, the guy was hitting the back of the gun with a mallet. So guns aren't meant to be doing that. But at the same time, I would say there's a potential problem there. I mean, who's to say, right? You could be carrying your gun and you smack it on the side of your holster, or you bump up against something. Next thing you know, everything's safe, and bang, your gun discharges, even though you've never pulled the trigger. And the interesting part of that is for your SIG to come out and make that statement that at no time, and it's been proven scientifically, remember, scientifically proven, at no time does the gun discharge without the trigger being pulled. Well, I just showed you a video of that. You guys have probably seen multiple videos of the same thing. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you really quick, which was kind of interesting. I don't know if I'm going to show you this one. This gentleman explains what could be the potential hangup, and it really deals with the sear and then just getting too many things, gunk, carbon, cleaning agents in there. And because of that, the sear will not go back into place fast enough, or whatever. Could that be a possibility? Sure. Anything's a possibility, right? And that could be a possibility that's causing this issue. But one of the things that they mentioned here, and I'm going to put this one up here for you guys. It says here that, they had 18 lawsuits. Well, I found this one was kind of interesting. Now, this is a recent article. You can see here it's dated March 10th, 2025. So just 5 days ago. And it says more law enforcement agencies reconsider the use of popular 6-hour P320 handgun. More than 100 people have reported unintentional discharges and 80 injuries since 2016, right? So we can argue that this is human error, right? Or we can say maybe it's a combination. I would suggest, though, that when you see this and you look at the statistics, I mean, it's minimal, right? You figure there's God knows how many millions of 6-hour P320s are out there, and only 100 people have reported unintentional discharges and 80 injuries since 2016. So in the time period of, let's say, 9 years, maybe 9.25 years, you're really not seeing too many. But what is going to be the threshold, right? And I think that's something people have to decide. Like, what's the threshold of safety when it comes to a firearm? I own plenty of firearms. None of them have ever had a discharge the way that I've been seeing here. I would also say I've owned 320s, lots of them, never had any issues with them. But there is clearly something going on here. And I'm not a scientist and I'm not an engineer, so I can't scientifically or justify anything that I'm telling you. I can only go by what's in front of me, right? And there's that old saying, if you don't see it, then you shouldn't believe it. But I'm seeing it. So how is it that we shouldn't believe it according to Sig Sauer? So this is an interesting article, talks about the history of the SIG. It talks about the multiple lawsuits, at least 15 more plaintiffs and new evidence have surfaced, linking the firearm to at least one death, which is interesting. I didn't know what that was. I could not find anything on it. And it says here plenty of law enforcement agencies, obviously Milwaukee, Wisconsin was another, Florida, Texas, Washington, Georgia jury found, and we talked about that last time. So there definitely has been a pattern here. And, I would say or suspect that there's no way that everything that you see here could be human error. It says here in 2018, a year after the U.S. Army announced its 10-year, $580 million contract with SIG, a U.S. Department of Defense report revealed that during testing, the military found that the 320 could discharge without a trigger pull. Holy shit, wait a second. Do they have better scientists? So Sig Sauer in 2017 modified the gun's trigger mechanism. The company also redesigned a civilian version of the 320 and offered owners of older models the opportunity to voluntarily return their guns for upgraded components, which many of us know. I actually sent my guns back when they did it. Again, never had any issues with it, but I wasn't going to keep a gun that could potentially, go bang when it fell. It says here, despite the rise of reported incidents, Sig Sauer has steadfastly maintained that the 320 is safe for use. The company has denied claims that the gun is defective and insists that the reported discharges are due to improper handling. Does that sound familiar? It does to me. But it's weird, right? Because it's not just individuals. It's not just people like me, people like you. We're talking police agencies. We're also talking military agencies, right? So we're talking about a very large group of different types of use. And, they may have good quality scientists for Sig Sauer, but for some reason, it seems like there is still something going on. So let me go to some of these comments here. So Joshua saying, when SIG says that, it's actually correct. If you move the sear manually, the trigger moves. The trigger and sear movement are slaved. So SIG isn't lying when they say the trigger has to move for the gun to go off. And you're absolutely right. And I was going to talk about that because there is a little bit of word salad going on here, right? So I agree with that statement. I think SIG is purposely saying things, but not saying things, right? And so I agree with what Joshua is saying there. Let's see. Scott79. I know for a fact that the 360s, when they first came out, had issues with the firing pin. That is true. That is correct. We all saw it. That is absolutely true. Dexter saying quality control. I think that's partially it. Joshua is saying sear to move backward, the best kind of right by a technicality. Yes, you're absolutely right, right? And it's interesting. 79 is saying when police first started swapping over the revolvers to Glocks, the cops were shooting themselves at the time in a lot bigger numbers. And it had to do, obviously, with the, manual of arms. That's a big word, right? You're going from striker fired to a hammer fire. So that's what was actually causing it. And that was more negligence on the police officer's part, in my opinion. Let's see. Scott is saying, and I wouldn't be surprised if some less than scrupulous YouTubers screwed with their gun to make it seem like it had failure prior to filming a video. And that is possible. Like I said, I'm not here to dismiss or to say anything is 100% correct. I think it's a combination of things. I think there are people out there looking for a payday. I think that would be normal for people to do. I also think that there is some negligence in some of these where people are just, not handling the gun the way it should be handled in a safe manner. But I also think there is something going on with the quality control and also the manufacturing of these firearms. There's no way that all this can be generated to one singular thing, at least not in my opinion, because again, you do the statistics, it just seems to be not possible, Joshua saying he supposes that's the case, still doesn't explain everything else going on with 320s. And I agree, right? So we can't dismiss everything, but we certainly can't pinpoint it to one singular thing, which is kind of interesting. But one of the things I also wanted to show you guys, which I found, hopefully I didn't get rid of it. I don't think I did. Okay, I didn't. But this was a kind of an interesting thing. So these are the military's reports on the 320. In this case, the M18s, M17s. And these are actually documents you can find online. I mean, there's nothing hidden here. As you can see, it's unclassified. And this is basically, it's like a quality control report, right? It's basically demonstrating what went wrong with items that the government has paid for, gone under, quality inspection to see what was the causation of certain issues that were resulting in what they purchased. In this case, you can see the background. It says is having a new issue with our SIG M18s. So not really sure why they redacted that. Probably branch of military or somebody. I don't know. It says safety lock is pictures shearing and disabling the drop safety. Now, these are all legitimate. This is not me creating. This is not anybody creating. This is coming from the government. It says weapons will still fire and function normally, but can be unsafe if dropped. If not corrected, weapon could accidentally discharge. So you have the military who've inspected these firearms after they've had actual instances where the gun has dropped or the gun has gone off and there hasn't been any action by the person carrying the gun. Ongoing actions inspected and repaired as required. Again, more redaction. Says the affected part can only be replaced as an entire assembly. The striker assembly, no idea why they redacted that, whatever that is after it. Request that armorers keep striker assemblies on hand as shop stock, which is interesting. That means expect a high turnover. Three of the 115 on hand were found broken during inspection. So what are the numbers there, right? So again, this is why I'm saying to you, it's not everything. We know this, but is it a small segment of these guns that are coming out of the factory that are not within spec and they're letting them get out? And then it boils down to quality control. So you're looking at 3 out of 115. So you figure 1% of 115 would be about 1.1. So you're looking at roughly 3% of the guns that they're getting have been found to have broken striker assemblies or some form of issue with them. Round count on the affected pistols was approximately 5,000 to 6,000 rounds. Some might say that, that's a lot of rounds. I don't agree with that. I think it's ridiculous to sit there and say 5,000 to 6,000 rounds would be too much. Says the recommendations, adjacent unit armorers, one time inspect all weapons of the affected area on the underside of the slide, and then says reinspect every time the weapon is issued. Wow. So then it gives you some documentation of what they're talking about. So again, you can see here, this is the normal way that a slide should look. And this is where that safety is missing. So that's I guess I would assume that it doesn't look like the sear, but I don't know what that is. Anybody want to tell me? Let me know. Again, I can't really make this out. Good striker assembly. So that looks good. Can't really read that. Great graphics here. And then it says something here about the striker assembly, which looks like it's out of position and not the same. Very interesting. The striker assembly removed. This looks like it's good striker assembly, and couldn't tell you what the hell that says, but it looks like something definitely is out of a line here, right? So that pin is fully in. Now you can see it actually extended out. Let's see. Striker pin is forward. Another striker pin forward. And as you can see, the pin is sticking out, which obviously, if it's out of position and it falls, could this thing actually inadvertently strike the primer of a bullet? So that's a part of the documentation that's come out. And it's interesting. And just so you know, these are, again, this is nothing that I've created. These are all documents. These are all government documents. But you can see here, personnel inadvertently discharged an M18 modular handgun system into clearing barrel. During arming at the beginning of swinging shift changeover, personnel inadvertently discharged into clearing barrel. Clearing barrel absorbed round, no injuries reported. So it goes into some detail as to what happened here and what occurred. Every one that I've read, it's the same thing. It says here, based on mechanical analysis conducted by combat arms personnel, it is inconclusive if there was a mechanical failure in the weapon system which allowed the firing pin to move forward after depressing the fire selector lever, causing an inadvertent discharge. So it's interesting, right? So each one of these, and it actually shows you, right here, you can see it. So each thing that you see here is been documented by the federal government and the United States Army. And it's interesting that, they're saying there doesn't seem to be any, perfect evidence to declare that. But as you can see right here, the firing pin is extended forward versus a correct area where it is, and there's several reports, and these reports are all identical circumstance. Gun is being holstered, gun is being used, gun is being put into service, and next thing you know it, the gun goes bang. So that kind of brings me to the next part of this. Then what is the problem, right? It's just very odd to me that this is happening to Sig Sauer, but it doesn't seem to be happening to anyone else. And, again, we can dismiss it as coincidence. We can dismiss it as user error. But at the end of the day, if it was user error, why aren't we seeing more of these things happen to other firearms, other manufacturers, and not just SIG? And I think that's what really bothers me the most. Because, yeah, is this the most important thing to be talking about in the gun community? It's not, but I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of gun tubers who are not going to talk anything about this, but they'll most certainly review the next Sig Sauer that comes out, right? And I think that's a shame because this should be spoken about. This should have some form of conversation to say, well, time out. We understand that SIG has millions and millions of dollars buried into government contracts globally in the United States, probably billions of dollars. And we know what would happen if they admitted some sort of flaw in their firearm. The contracts would go up in smoke. They would have violated their contract, and those contracts would be just terminated. And as a result, they would lose hundreds of millions of dollars. So at the end of the day, what it boils down to is it really legitimate for the SIG to say there's nothing wrong with their gun, or is it more or less more legitimate for them to do this because they know it would bankrupt the company? And for me, I don't know where I stand on it. I own a 365 fuse. I carry it most every day. I don't have any issues with it. I don't feel afraid of it. I don't feel like it's just going to go off at some point. And to be honest with you, I hope it never does. But at the same time, when I look at the 320s, and by the way, they're selling cheaply. Big Johnson sent me something today showing there's a place that's selling the 320 on March 20th for $320. So, if you're looking for a cheap SIG, now's the time to do it. It's just a question of, do you trust it enough to use it? And that's going to be the question. Some people say, oh, why wouldn't I trust it? I've had one for years. It's never done anything. And that's great. Like I said, I've had them, never done anything either. But at the same time, there's got to be some questions here. There's got to be some statement from someone else besides SIG that's going to say, well, time out. You guys have been going to court. You have won a couple of cases, I'm sure, but you've also lost a lot of cases. So then what really is going on? I mean, it's weird. It's a very strange place to be in regards to being a gun company for sure. So let's see what some of you are saying here. Let's see. Anti M17, M18, slightly different because they incorporate the manual safety, unlike the normal 320s. There's got to be some internal differences to allow for that safety. I agree with that. It could be just a pin in a bar. But, is that enough of a significant difference to have it go off? I think obviously with a manual safety, you are putting or impeding that striker from moving forward, period. But, it's hard to say, right? The difference between the Glock and the 320 is you can check for drop safety with the Glock. You can do that with the 320. It means that as the gun wears in, you can verify it. Let's see. Paul is saying because LE never have NDs, aside from all the other BS, stop acting like idiots, do stupid things. Well, I don't think anybody's denied that, right? I mean, I would say that I probably shoot more often than law enforcement does. I've seen their qualifications. It's not that much. It's really pretty lame, actually. But one of the things I would say is these are not just law enforcement officers having negligent discharges. These are people shooting in competitions, or I won't even say negligent, right? Shooting competitions, people who are carrying them, just carrying them. There have been several videos online where you can see people who are going to a competition where they, obviously pop a mag in, load the first round in the chamber, they holster the gun, hands off of everything, and the gun discharges. I mean, I don't know how you explain that. How can you say that that's just somebody being an idiot? I don't agree with that. Something's creating it, right? Let's see. Tolerance as the parts wear and replace as needed. The 320 has no way of verifying sear engagement. Speaking of Mexico, I find it very odd that they basically sued every gun manufacturer in the U.S. but SIG. How about just stand behind your product and fix them? The only SIG I carry is a 365X. That's because SIG has a contract with Mexico, right? I would have to discount people that have issues with their firearms that shoot in competitions because unless they're running a stock gun, they're typically very modified. And that could be, again, look, there's all these options out there. There's all these things that we could possibly say are causing these things. And, again, we're not there, right? Unless you've seen it and you know what exactly these people are running. You're right. We don't have anybody who can really verify that they're not modified or they're not this or not that, right? Or they're using overpressured ammo. And as a result, it's causing something to malfunction. The question's gonna be, I think at the end of the day, what happens to the 320? I know that SIG has a lot of contracts out. You know, they have the SP 2022 still out there in the world. They just dumped a ton of money, or they just got a ton of money for the 320s. I think from Colombia, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that, but it seems like the 320 is here to stay. Now the question is going to be long term. What happens, right? Are these guns going to be enough? In regards to safety and reliability for people to trust them. It's interesting. It's interesting because when you read everybody's comments, they're saying they won't touch SIG. Then you read some other people saying there's nothing wrong with a SIG. I'm kind of an in-betweener, right? Like, I don't know what to believe at this point. I know that I've seen things. I know that, SIG has defended themselves, and you're seeing both sides win and lose. So for me, am I going to go out and run and get a 320? Probably not. I mean, if I could find a really cheap, super cheap AXG, I would do that. But I'm not out running to the store to buy, another SIG P320. Not at this point. And then Josh is saying, here's a question: is there a reason to carry a 320 with all of these new, of all these unknown variables? Is it just the modularity that's a selling point? The trigger isn't anything great, in my opinion. So that's a great question. It is, right? So is there a reason to carry 320? To be honest with you, I don't even know if there's a reason to carry any double stack guns anymore that are clunky, bulky, big, fat guns. I have right now next to me, I have my mechanic, my MC9 LS. I was carrying that sucker yesterday. And I've become a big fan of all those slim guns because I think they do as good a job as any big fat gun. And so to me, the reason why the P320 is not desirable for me is just because I've got better options that are a lot skinnier, but still very, very usable. So, that's just my opinion. Now in regards to modularity, the modularity is huge. Like I still think like that's where SIG really just won the market over for quite a while. Um, so I think that when it talks about, the modularity, I think absolutely that's a huge, huge bonus. I bought the new Ruger, the RXM, because of the modularity of that gun. I think that's a huge appealing thing for a lot of gun owners. At least for me, it is. And you're right, the trigger isn't anything great. It's not. It's just not. I would say 365 Fuse had a really nice trigger, very smooth take up, nice reset. I changed it out for a Tyrant CNC trigger just because it has a trigger safety, but that's just my preference, and the trigger's just as good. And yes, Pistol, I am live again. Yes, I am, sir. Sorry to disappoint you. That's funny. Let's see. The only thing that the double stack Wonder Nines have over slim carry guns of today is shootability and the proving track record. And that might be the case, but if you have not shot the MC9 LS and if you've not shot the 365 Fuse or even the Shield for that matter, and the Shield's kind of a weird one because I would say out of all of them, that's my least favorite, even though it shoots really well. Even the Glock 48, which is a slimline gun, in my opinion, shoots relatively well. Comparatively speaking to like a double stack. And that's just my opinion, but that's through shooting it, right? Let's see. Again, that is still the same fire control group, though, and that is correct, Dexter, right? And that seems to be where the problem may lie. Pistol Pete saying he was watching all the people in New York protesting Elon Musk and Tesla. I love Doge. Yeah, they protest everything up here. They're just idiots. We're surrounded by idiots. Shield Plus uses a lot of the same parts. I mean, it's basically a shield. Everything about it, has some aesthetic changes, and then obviously the barrel, and the slide with the port in there. So, but other than that, it's still the same. So that's pretty much for the SIG. I don't want to keep doing live streams about this, and I'm really hopeful SIG doesn't make any more comments. I think the first comment really threw everybody in kind of this weird frenzy about how stupid of a comment that was. And I actually said this a couple of times on the guy's stream and my stream, that I always felt like SIG had something else coming down the pipeline. And that was kind of just the prelude to it because they knew a decision was made and that decision would be in their favor. So, maybe that's why they were doing it, to capitalize on that one decision. But again, one of the things I would say is it's one decision that came down to your favor, and I guess they're trying to publicize that and kind of ride that as for as long as they can. Rich is asking, when's the meeting with your judge you talked about on Big J's show? That is happening on, hold on, what's today? The 15th. That is on Tuesday. Can't wait. It's going to be exciting. Let's see. Scott is saying SIG they fired that person at SIG because they're advertising on a social media job. Yeah, I know. I actually applied for it. I didn't get a call. I wonder why. Let's see. Let's see. All right. So I'm caught up on all the comments. So if you have any other comments about anything or any questions, you can ask. We have about another 25 or so minutes, so we can turn this into a stream about other guns and things that interest all of you. I do personally hope that this would be the last that we hear of the SIG 320 controversy. I think over time, unless something develops out there where we begin to see more and more of these things happening with the SIG 320, eventually it's going to quiet down. Eventually it's going to be forgotten and people are just going to move forward. And I think that's really what was happening before they made the initial statement that then led to this outcry from the public of saying, well, time out. How can you say this? Well, they gave you that by saying, by the way, we just won a federal court case in Puerto Rico. So quite interesting times we are at. So one of the things that I've been kind of looking at, and it was funny, I was on a website today looking at prices of handguns. And one of the guns that I always thought was really cool, and interestingly enough, really based prior to the 320, is the P250. And I would always say that the double action pull that P250 had was a very smooth double action. I was looking at them online today. There's one that's on there it's a P250 compact. Looks like it was used. Let's put it that way. Not too bad, but not too good. And they advertised it, but so far there's no bids on it. And I'm thinking maybe if I can get it for like $5, let's try it out. Let's see if it's any good still. Although you probably can't find anything for it, but who cares? Let's give it a shot. So that's something I might be doing. Maybe. I'm not sure. G23 2022 is a decent firearm. It is a decent firearm, definitely. And that's the thing too. Like, I think for people who want to kill SIG on this and say that they're the worst gun manufacturer out there, it's just not, that is also not a very realistic statement, right? And the reason why I'm saying that is because when you look at the track record on the majority of their guns that they've produced over the history of the company, they make some great handguns. I mean, unfortunately, they're usually metal and they're usually hammer fired, but I would say that 2022, the polymer, the polymer 229, right, is a really good gun. I mean, it's very reliable. It's been a decent gun for many, many years. They're interesting guns. I mean, a little bit big, a little bit bulkier than I would like, but nonetheless, not too many bad, or not too many are bad. That's what I meant to say. But when like the 225A1, great gun, 229, great gun, 226, great gun, 227. I mean, you name it, man. A lot of the guns that SIG has produced over the history and the course of their company's existence have been very, very good firearms. So it's kind of sad in a way to say that there's so much hate around this because of one single gun. But I also think it's more than just that. I think it's just also been the response of it and the lack of, I guess you can say, caring, and more of the blaming of people who own these guns. And I think that's the one thing that I would say that's what really pisses me off. But it's understandable because there's a lot of money to lose, right? And they're not going to lose that money. There's no way. Let's see. Mike is saying, wonder how many bags of money they sent to the plaintiff. I'd be curious to see that too. I'd love to know if there was some form of NDA with a few $1,000,000 and all he had to do was say that, oh, by the way, the gun didn't fire. It can't fire, like they talk about scientific expertise and scientific evidence. Well, this guy was a cop. He's not a scientist. So how can he make that determination that it didn't fire unless he made it up, right? Unless he lied, unless he said it just to try to capitalize on what was going on. But, unfortunately, we may know if they ever release the documents. we might know, but right now we don't. Let's see. Let's see. So, how is the new Ruger? Will it work for larger hands? Well, Rich, I don't know because I was requested to come to the court to have a conversation as to why do I need so many handguns. So right now my XRM, it's in. I just can't pick it up because I'm not allowed to right now. So that's the big issue, and that's coming on Tuesday. So we'll see how that goes. I just there's a part of me that makes me so mad, but there's a part of me that says you got to just be calm, be level headed, and smarter than them, and that's the course I'm going to choose. Unfortunately. Scott is saying I ordered Beretta APX A1 Tactical Compact from Gun. I'm not going to say it. It was such a good deal shipped. It was under $4. You know what? And that's the crazy part. Like that's been the case for the APX forever, right? The first generation APX came out. Prices were like $500-600 around there, and then all of a sudden, the market crashed on them. They were not a big selling handgun, and then you could go and buy them for like $250. And same thing happened with the A1, and the A1 was a decent gun. I still am not a huge fan of Beretta when it comes to that gun because they just don't do really much for it. No real aftermarket. And some people would say, well, what do you need aftermarket for? Well, I mean, I'd like to have a differential selection of night sights, holsters, maybe trigger shoes, maybe some spring changing. And some people are like, well, what's wrong with it? The gun is very good. And it is. It's a nice gun. The finish on mine wasn't so nice, but it's just nice to have those options. I'm not saying you have to have them. It's just nice to have them, right? At least that's my opinion. Josh saying the 250 does have a great double action only. I've shot it a few times and enjoyed it for the most part. It's a shame that SIG discontinued. And I agree. I do like that gun quite a bit. Very smooth. If you've never experienced that double action on that gun, it is super, super sweet. It really is. It's perfect in my opinion. Pistol Pete, the guns I really like, no one even knows they exist. Well, what are they? Tell us. Dexter saying, do I have any levers? Do I have any new levers? No, I don't. I looked at the Smith and Wesson. I like those. The Rossies, and I'm not so much into the Rossies. And I'm not about to pay what Ruger is asking for the Marlins right now. It's insane, man. I mean, you can still find decent ones for decent money. They're not going to necessarily have the fit and finish as the newer versions of them, of course. But I wouldn't mind getting a Smith. I would like to try to get one of those. So Smith and Wesson, if you're interested, you could always send me one, which they're not, so I probably won't get any. But no, nothing new. Let's see. Scott is saying gun owners in the gun industry loves controversy. They sure do. And you could see that immediately the day after SIG made their comment. You have Smith and Wesson putting up their video where they were kind of mocking, and I would say pretty directly, they were mocking SIG and what SIG was talking about. I thought it was funny because they used the one person they shouldn't have used at that point, which was Grand Thumb, who, if you guys haven't been reading, doesn't seem to have a very good reputation, personally with women. And, I thought it was kind of interesting that, you're going to bash another company for stupid mistakes, but then you're putting this dumbass on there. And yeah, I said it. Don't like the guy. Think he's a piece of shit. Let's see. Scott is saying hasn't had any issues with my A1 tactical, maybe just got a bad gun that had a shitty finish. Yeah, I mean, I made a video on it when I first got the A1, and I liked it. I mean, it's a comfortable gun. It's an interesting gun, right? Because the slide is a lot nicer than the old one, that's for sure. And it shoots pretty good, but mine always shot oddly. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's, and this might sound stupid, but I always felt like the barrel just sat lower in the slide, which threw off the point of aim on it all the time. And it could just be that I suck, which is a great possibility. But I do feel like that gun just never was as accurate as it should have been. And it probably was because of me. But I just didn't feel like I had a good control over the gun, which I didn't like. But that's just me. Scott's saying the new lever guns from Smith are really nice, surprisingly, and they made a really nice trigger in them. Yep, that's what I'm hearing. Lever guns are legal in New York State. My God, did you know that ARs are still legal in New York State? They are. You just have to do a couple of things to change them and make sure that they, don't have some of the regular qualities and characteristics of an AR-15. Let's see. Scott saying, yeah, Grand Thumb may have a couple of kids he doesn't know about. I think it's more than a couple. I think it's probably way more than a couple. But, again, That's his own business. Chris from the 740 had issues with the APX A1. Yeah, and when I say issues, they weren't like mechanical issues. They weren't necessarily structural, with the exception of the finish. The finish was a weird finish on the slide because I only put a couple of hundred rounds through this gun and it started flaking off. And you could actually remove it with your fingernail. And so I felt like that was super disappointing because the gun was a nice gun. It's a slick looking gun. But I also think that, Beretta is a historically a good company that makes great firearms, right? You would think that they would have finished it a little bit more, um, I guess you could say, superior or expert wise, finish it better, but they did not, in my opinion. And I'm not the only person who's actually said that. There's been other people who have said that as well. Let's see. Scott saying, although I did discover a couple days ago the Beretta has a new bolt action rifle. That's a street pole rifle. That's super nice. Interesting. Not a big fan of bolt actions. Just not my thing. It's a couple of things I don't like. I don't like bolt actions. I don't like revolvers. I know. People are going to say, why not? I just don't. Just don't. Oh, okay. Straight pull versus street pole. Perfect. I didn't want to mock you, but I just let it go. Yeah, straight pull rifles. I do like those. But yeah. So, at the end of the day, I mean, for me, in regards to the gun world, things have changed dramatically for me, right? I've slowed down to a snail's pace. I think I'll probably do some live streams here and there more frequently. I just find that they're more interesting to me now than they've ever been. Just because I don't have the revolving door of guns at this point. And I don't know if I ever will again. And that's kind of the interesting part of the channel, as time has evolved, things change. And I just can't keep funding the channel the way I wanted to and the way I used to. So as a result, things slow down and you kind of have to change course a little bit. But I do plan on doing more live streams, trying to bring up some issues of whatever we see out there, bring you the media so that you can see it for yourselves versus me just talking about it. And we'll see how it goes. We'll see if that's something that you guys are into. Joshua saying Beretta's finishes are the greatest. The Bruton finish is just glorified Cerakote, but most manufacturers' finishes aren't great. My Shield Plus is an exception. Yeah, the Shield had a really nice finish on it. Trying to think what else. What? Interestingly enough, and again, everybody laughs. The Steyr actually had a very good finish on it. Yeah, it's all of them. They're just really well built guns, in my opinion. Just my opinion. I couldn't tell you how many videos I've seen where people were complaining about the finishes on Taurus firearms and how garbage they were. That's the interesting too. Like, you don't want to bash anybody who makes videos on Tauruses or Tauri. Who the hell knows? But one of the things I would say to you is I've always been very skeptical of the hatred that people had for Taurus, and then all of a sudden, all the gun tubers were out there reviewing them, saying, "Oh my God, they're so great." And there are people out there who agree with them. I had a Taurus. Can't remember which one it was, a little tiny one. And it was an interesting gun. Like had a nice trigger on it. It was a little tiny thing. And it shot pretty nice. But I think there's still better and cheaper, or even in the same price range. It makes no sense to drop down to that price range when you can find better manufactured handguns for about the same price. That's, again, it's just my opinion. Judah saying HK is discontinuing the VP9 SK. Are subcompacts relevant anymore? That's a great question. I was never a fan of the SK. I always thought the SK was just a little bit off balance for me. Just something about it never really worked for me. It doesn't mean it won't work for you, but that's what I actually, came to the conclusion for me. It just never really worked out. With that said, are subcompacts even something that is going to be used anymore? That's a really good question. Like I personally don't see it. I don't know why somebody would carry a Glock 26 when you can carry something that's a little bit bigger, right? Not much bigger, but something that's a little bit bigger, but at the same time can also give you the capacity that a full-size gun can give you. So I always thought that was weird. Like I would never carry a 26. I would never, I had an M&P 2.0 subcompact, and it was a nice gun. But it was chunky and small. So, why not go with the Shield? It's basically better. And right now I don't have any subcompacts. Everything I have are slim lines or double stacks right now. Rugers that start rusting if you look at them wrong. Yeah, I hope that's not going to be the case with the RXM, with the whole modular system in there. It's going to be pretty interesting. It looks like it's built really well. It's constructed and engineered really well. So obviously, once and if I ever get the damn thing, I will bring it all to you so you can see it. Missile saying he's created less videos too. Might pick up a Glock and do a video on that. Yeah, it's just things changed. This channel's been around, and I've been really happy with everybody who watches the videos, and everybody leaves great comments. And even these are always fun because it allows us to have a dialogue, even though we're not all face to face. But I also know that I just was not the fortunate one who was able to really do well on YouTube. And I admit that, like, a lot of it is on me because, again, time and all these other things. But I also am not going to sell out and, you know, get on my knees just to get ahead. I just can't do that. It's just not in my nature, and I'm not saying people are doing that or have done it, but I think, I think most of us would agree that there are some people out there who we know do, and they keep getting further and further ahead. And what it really has created is kind of a vacuum in YouTube, right? So you only get, the top guys and gals who are doing this, and that's about it. Nobody else can get anything. These companies don't send anything to people like me on my channel, and it's too bad, but it's okay, right? I always said I wasn't doing this for money. So, unfortunately, my money is slowly coming to an end. So I have to be smarter, and that's what I plan on doing. Let's see. Uh, Multiple HK pistols, including VP9, which I shoot the best, but I've had the P2000, the P30 SK, which I currently have, and I couldn't get those guns to group. Yeah, I mean, I think it's always look. Some people will sit here and say that you suck and it's your fault, but I also believe that at times there are guns that, for whatever reason, just don't work with you, right? And it's interesting because you could say that on the flip side as well. Like, for example, right next to me, right here, outside, because you can't show it anymore, is the MC9LS. As soon as I picked this gun up, I was kind of like, okay, it's okay, it's not great. But then when I took it to the range and I shot it, I was like, God damn, this gun is really good. And the reason why it is because for whatever reason, when this gun gets in my hands, it is one of the most naturally shooting firearms that I've ever shot. And criticize whatever you want to criticize, but that's what I found about the gun. Let's see. The RXM should be fine. The slide and barrel are nitride with versus Ruger's other offerings, which are just black oxided. Yeah. I mean, it looks like a good gun. I mean, it really does. I mean, the grip, I did play around with the grip a little bit. It's a weird feeling grip. It's hard to explain, right? So it's supposed to be thinner slightly than a Glock, but it feels chunkier than a Glock. And the grip angle feels a little off. And so I don't know, again, this is just the initials when I first went in and checked it out for like 15 minutes. So, time will tell if it works out. Obviously Icarus is going to be working on an RXM module. They've advertised it. I'm praying I get one so I can play with it and show it to you guys. But I'm excited, man, because that gun opens the door to a lot of possibilities. And I think Ruger really was smart in doing it. And Scott saying gun companies figure out who they can work with and who will toe the line, and then they support those people. Yep. I mean, it's typical, right? It's typical business. So, and that's why I don't take it personal, right? Because how could you, right? They're looking for maximum exposure of a product, and whoever wants to kiss the ring is going to do it. What's a good salary in New York? None. It's funny you asked that. I was at my friend and I were talking about our salaries, which I'm not telling you. But we were talking about how much our taxes come out. And I was actually going to do a video on it. And it's just incredible, man. It really is. It's just incredible the amount of taxes that come out of our salaries here in New York. You have to figure that, whatever you earn, you have your federal and state income tax, you're probably losing close to 40% of your income in New York State. And I said it, 40% comes out to like 35 something. So, round up, right? So 35 to 40% of your income is gone. And I couldn't tell you what the hell we get for it. The whole place around me is falling apart. Roads, infrastructure, it's terrible. And the cost of living sucks. And you got to pay for paper bags at the supermarket. Yeah. Let's see. G23 is slow to my contact because I'm focusing my money on fighting unconstitutional laws in Oregon and Washington. That's good. And that's the thing too. And I think that's what really gets me a little bit on YouTube is that, for a long time when I first started, there were a lot of these startup people who were really making decent content. And then now it seems like you get people out there who make content, but you absolutely know that they're in cahoots with whoever they're making the content for. Um, because every single goddamn video they make, they're always saying, well, this gun is really good, but it's not as good as this gun. I hear that a lot about a particular gun guy who's always talking about bull armory, bull armory, bull armory, bull armory, bull armory. Interesting. Let's see. 150 is lowest for New York. I would say probably 145, 150. Yep. In order to live and have some money to spend, you probably want to make close to $150,000 in New York. And if you live in New York City, you actually have to pay city tax. So you get city, state, and federal. Yep. It's crazy. This guy's saying not worth unless you're making millions to be in New York. And anybody who's making millions of dollars, if you're living in New York, you're an asshole. You totally are. Leave. Just put more in your 401k. Yeah, well, you put more money in your 401k, you got less money to have food on your table. That's the problem. Yeah, Scott's saying New Hampshire. Good gun laws, no sales tax, no income tax, but high cost of living. But you actually have more income coming in, so it kind of offsets itself. New York State, everything's high, everything's punitive, and your taxes come out like crazy. So we're going to get too close to the end of this. And like I said, I'm not throwing names out there. I can name a list of people who do the same thing. And no, he's not the only one. But and again, these are all people who say they're honest and they're not being persuaded, but every video, I find that hard to believe. I could be wrong. If I am wrong, my apologies. My thing is like, for example, I love Steyer. Everybody knows that. Guess what? Never got a damn thing from him. Not anything. And the only reason why I like them is because I love their guns and I think they're fucking great. So I'm talking investments. Definitely time to end the stream. Yeah, I know. We could sit here and make this into an investments channel. Yeah, we all know the guy who shot his truck's hood definitely gets paid for videos. Yeah, well, we know that too. It's a shame, but look, it's business, right? And in business, if you have an opportunity to make money, make that money, right? I don't even consider them reviewers anymore. Most of these guys and gals, I consider them influencers, and that's it. I think when we call them reviewers, I think it's false because they're not really reviewing shit. They're just influencing you to buy something, and that's a shame. Yeah, I never met a gun he didn't like. You're right. And, I've met a few that I didn't like, and I've met a lot that I do love. But again, it's not about jealousy. I don't care. I'm glad they're being successful. I'm glad they're making a lot of money off of this stuff. Yeah, Pistol Pete threw the name out, Such. It's funny. Such is kind of one of those guys. Like I'll watch him because I like his tabletop stuff because when he shows the things, he goes in depth with them, very factually speaking, but never really gives an opinion. And I guess that's really the difference, right? That's really the difference between a reviewer versus an influencer. An influencer doesn't give an opinion; they give you a factual portfolio of what they're showing you, and every once in a while, maybe they give you a tidbit of personal insight. And, that's kind of, I don't know, I'm kind of not into it. That's why I don't really watch gun channels anymore. I just don't. I just think that, if you want to talk about the gun, talk about it from an honest standpoint. The problem is, as all of you know, if you do that, it could hurt you. I mean, I've had some guns sent to me. I mean, I've had some guns sent to me every once in a while, like, I mean, a few. And I was very honest, and that's why I've never been able to get anything again. But I'm still trying, my humble little channel of 25,000, which, you know what? It's better than nothing. So we are coming down to the end here. It's been about an hour. I appreciate everybody who watched. I think we got up to like 32 people at some point. So nothing huge, but not too friggin' bad for a Saturday night. And like I said, at the end of the day, if you're into the SIGs and you feel confident enough with them, then go and buy them. I mean, especially now, the market is telling you to buy them because they're so damn cheap. But I just hope that at some point, maybe we can get a little clarity and a little bit of closure so that people can go on and buy what they want. Would I like to see a remaking of the 320? Absolutely. Why wouldn't they do that? Some people say, well, it'll ruin their contracts. Not really. I mean, gun manufacturers always make new generations of firearms. So let's make a new generation of P320s from the ground up, and then whatever the contract extension was for, maybe they'd have to, replace the old stock versus new stock. I mean, who knows? Maybe miracles happen. But we'll see. So coming up soon, hopefully the RXM. I will follow up with a video about my experiences with this judge on Tuesday. That might be actually a live stream. So we'll see. But as always, I hope you guys are doing well. Hope everybody's great. Again, if you'd like to support the channel, you can by subscribing and sharing with everyone. Also, there is a link in my profile to donate to the lacrosse team, which would be awesome. I really would appreciate if people would do that. Like I said, I'm not asking for big bucks. $5. If I could get 20 of you to donate $5, I don't care. It's $100 that goes to this team to live their dreams. So other than that, guys, I hope you have a great night. Hopefully everybody stays safe. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Again, I appreciate all you watching, man. So have a great night. Until the next time we meet.